I saw her the moment I walked through the door, Helen Martinez, sitting alone at a corner table, her fingers tracing the rim of an untouched wine glass. The soft lighting of Romano's couldn't hide the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept glancing at her phone, then at the entrance, then back down at the table like she was trying to disappear into the white linen. 3 years. It had been 3 years since I'd seen my ex-fiancée's mother, and here she was, dressed in a navy blue dress that looked too formal, too hopeful, waiting for someone who clearly wasn't coming. The hostess touched my arm. "Mr. Cooper, your table is ready." But I couldn't move, because I recognized that look on Helen's face. I'd worn it myself once, sitting in a different restaurant, waiting for Claire to show up to our engagement dinner. She'd been 2 hours late that night, and when she finally arrived, she'd spent the whole evening on her phone. Helen checked her watch again. The couple at the next table whispered to each other, stealing glances her way. That pitying look, that poor woman got stood up look that makes you feel like you're wearing your humiliation as a coat. My business partner could wait. The deal could wait. I walked toward her table instead. "You shouldn't be sitting here alone," I said. Helen's head snapped up, her eyes widening. "Daniel, before we continue, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love hearing how far these stories reach. And if you believe connections like this deserve to be told, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's see how a single moment of kindness changed everything." Helen's shock lasted only a second before she composed herself, straightening in her chair with that practiced grace I remembered from family dinners years ago. But her hands betrayed her, trembling slightly as she set down her phone. "Daniel Cooper," she said, her voice steady but her eyes searching mine. "What are you doing here?" "Business dinner," I said, gesturing vaguely toward the back of the restaurant. "But it seems I'm early. Mind if I sit?" She hesitated, her gaze flickering to the entrance one more time, still hoping that whoever had promised to meet her would walk through those doors. "I don't think that's a good idea," she said quietly. "Neither do I admitted, "but I'm sitting anyway." I pulled out the chair across from her and sat down before she could protest. The waiter appeared instantly, that professional mask they wear when they sense drama brewing. "Another wine for the lady," I said, "and scotch for me." "Neat." When he left, Helen leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Daniel, you don't have to do this. I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're sitting here alone in a restaurant that costs $200 a plate, checking your phone every 30 seconds, and the couple behind you is taking bets on how long before you leave." Her face flushed. "You don't know that." "I know that look, Helen. I've worn it." Something shifted in her expression then. The wall she'd built crumbled just a little, and for a moment I saw past the elegant dress and the perfect posture to the woman underneath. Tired, lonely, trying so hard to hold it together. "Claire," she said softly. "She told you. Claire hasn't spoken to me in 3 years. Not since I called off the wedding." Helen's eyes widened. "You called it off?" She said. She stopped herself, pressing her lips together. She said what? It doesn't matter now. But it did matter. It mattered that Claire had rewritten history, that she'd painted herself as the victim when she'd been the one who'd checked out of our relationship months before I'd officially ended it. It mattered that even her own mother had believed the lie. The waiter returned with our drinks. Helen took a long sip of her wine, then set it down with deliberate care. "I'm on a blind date," she said finally. "Or I was supposed to be. Claire set it up. She said I needed to get out more, meet new people, stop living in the past." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Apparently 2 years is long enough to grieve your husband. Time to move on, right?" 2 years. I'd known Helen's husband had passed, but I hadn't realized it had been so recent. During the time Claire and I were together, her father had been this larger-than-life presence, always traveling for work, always busy. I'd met him maybe 3 times. "I'm sorry," I said, "about your husband." "Everyone's sorry," Helen said, her voice hardening. "Sorry he's gone. Sorry I'm alone. Sorry I'm not handling it better. Sorry I'm not dating yet. Sorry I'm not over it." She took another drink. "Do you know what it's like to have your own daughter look at you with pity? To have her treat you like you're broken?" I didn't answer. Because I did know what it was like to be treated as broken. After Claire, after I'd buried myself in work to avoid feeling anything, I'd seen that look from friends, from family. The poor Daniel, still not over her look. So tonight, Helen continued. I decided to prove her wrong. I said yes to the blind date. I bought a new dress. I came here to this overpriced restaurant and I waited. She checked her phone again, and I saw the screen. No new messages. 45 minutes. I waited 45 minutes before I accepted that he wasn't coming. Did he cancel? No. He just never showed up. The rage that flooded through me was surprising in its intensity. Some stranger had done this to her, had let her sit here alone, had humiliated her, and he'd get to go home tonight without consequences while Helen would carry this moment with her. What's his name? I asked. Why? Because I want to know who to punch if I ever meet him. That got a real laugh out of her, small but genuine. David something. I don't even remember his last name. Claire sent me his profile this morning. Did you want to meet him? Helen considered the question, really considered it. No, she said finally. But I wanted to want to. Does that make sense? It made perfect sense. I'd dated 3 women in the past 3 years, all of them perfectly nice, perfectly suitable, and I'd felt nothing. But I'd kept trying because I wanted to feel something again. What about you? Helen asked, turning the conversation. Business dinner on a Friday night? That seems like Claire's influence. Claire influenced a lot of things, I said, but she's been gone from my life longer than she was in it. I can't blame her for my choices anymore. That's very mature of you. Maturity is just another word for tired. She smiled at that, a real smile that reached her eyes. I'd forgotten how beautiful Helen was when she smiled. During the years with Claire, I'd only seen Helen at family gatherings, always playing hostess, always in the background making sure everyone else was comfortable. I'd never really looked at her. I was looking now. Your business partner is going to wonder where you are, Helen said. Let him wonder. Daniel, tell me something, I interrupted. If your date had shown up, what would you have talked about? She blinked at the question. I don't know. The weather? Work? Claire, probably. He knew I had a daughter. Sounds terrible. It does, doesn't it? She laughed again, and this time it sounded lighter. I don't even know why I agreed to this. I'm not ready. I'm not sure I'll ever be ready. Maybe you don't have to be ready, I said. Maybe you just have to be willing to try. Is that what you're doing? Trying? Every day. We sat in silence for a moment, the noise of the restaurant fading into background. Helen's phone buzzed and she glanced at it, then silenced it without reading the message. That's Claire, she said. 3rd time she's checked in. She probably wants to know how it's going. What are you going to tell her? Helen looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something shift in her expression, a decision being made. I'm going to tell her it went better than expected, she said slowly. I'm going to tell her that David was charming and attentive and exactly what I needed tonight. You're going to lie to your daughter? I'm going to give her what she wants. Peace of mind. The belief that her broken mother is finally putting herself back together. She paused. Unless you'd rather I tell her the truth, that her ex-fiancé took pity on me. Is that what this is, pity? Isn't it? I thought about that, about why I'd walked over here instead of going to my table, about why I was still sitting here instead of excusing myself. No, I said finally. It's not pity. Then what is it? I don't know yet. The waiter appeared again, this time with menus. Are we ready to order? Helen looked at me, a question in her eyes. We are, I said, not breaking eye contact with her. We'll start with the burrata, and bring us the wine list. When the waiter left, Helen leaned back in her chair, something like relief crossing her face. You don't have to do this. I know, but I'm going to anyway. We ordered. We ate. We talked about everything except Claire, except her late husband, except my failed engagement. We talked about Helen's work at the art gallery, about my architecture firm, about the city and how it had changed, about books and movies and the small things that make up a life. And somewhere between the appetizer and the main course, something shifted. The pretense fell away. This wasn't a rescue anymore. This wasn't Daniel Cooper taking pity on his ex-fiancée's mother. This was just 2 people, sitting across from each other, enjoying a conversation. I have a confession, Helen said as we waited for dessert. I looked you up, after Claire. I wanted to see how you were doing. And? You looked happy in your photos, successful, like you'd moved on. Social media lies. So does everyone. She folded her napkin, refolding it, a nervous gesture. Daniel, can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you really call off the wedding? I could have lied. Could have given her the sanitized version, the one I'd told everyone else. But sitting here with Helen looking at me with those honest eyes, I found I couldn't. Because I realized I was marrying the idea of Claire, not Claire herself, I said. Because I'd built this future in my head, and when I looked at the woman I was actually with, she didn't fit into it. She didn't want the same things. Family, kids, a home. She wanted a career and freedom and a partner who would stay out of her way. I paused. And because I was tired of feeling like I was always asking for too much when all I wanted was to be enough. Helen's eyes glistened. I think Claire made a mistake letting you go. I think we made a mistake trying to hold on. The dessert came. We shared a chocolate souffle that was too rich and too perfect. Helen laughed when I got chocolate on my tie. I laughed when she admitted she'd ordered it specifically because David's profile said he was lactose intolerant, and she'd wanted an excuse not to share. Ruthless, I said. Practical. When the check came, I paid before she could protest. We walked out of the restaurant together, and the valet brought her car around first. Thank you, Helen said, and there was real gratitude in her voice. For tonight, for not letting me sit there alone. Thank you for letting me stay. She hesitated, her hand on the car door. Daniel, I need to ask you for a favor, and you're going to think I'm insane. Try me. Come to my sister's birthday party next weekend. I blinked. What? As my date. My fake date. The words tumbled out quickly like she was afraid if she slowed down she'd lose her nerve. My family is exactly like Claire. They're all watching me, waiting for me to fall apart, treating me like I'm made of glass. And if I show up alone again, if I tell them another blind date fell through, I'll have to sit through another round of pitying looks and helpful suggestions and offers to set me up with their divorced co-workers. Helen, I know it's crazy. I know I have no right to ask. But tonight, for the first time in 2 years, I felt normal. I felt like myself, and I think— She stopped, taking a breath. I think if I show up with someone, if they see that I'm okay, that I'm moving forward, maybe they'll finally let me breathe. I should have said no. Should have made an excuse. Should have walked away from this situation that was complicated in ways neither of us could predict. But I looked at Helen, standing there in her too formal dress, asking me for help with the same desperation I'd felt so many times in the past 3 years, and I couldn't. One party, I said. Her face lit up. One party, I promise. And then we can go back to being strangers who occasionally run into each other. We were never strangers, Helen. No, she agreed softly. I suppose we weren't. She got in her car. I watched her drive away, the taillights disappearing into the Friday night traffic. My phone buzzed. My business partner wondering where I was. I texted back a lie about food poisoning and headed home, already wondering what I'd just agreed to. The party was at Helen's sister's house in the suburbs, one of those sprawling properties with a circular driveway and professionally landscaped gardens that screamed old money. I picked Helen up at 6, and when she opened the door, I almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the formal navy dress, the careful makeup, the armor she'd worn to Romano's. Tonight she wore a simple cream sweater and jeans, her dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She looked younger, lighter. Too casual? She asked, catching my stare. Perfect, I said. You look perfect. She blushed, actually blushed, and grabbed her purse. Thank you again for doing this. I know it's awkward. It's not awkward. Daniel, you're pretending to date your ex-fiancée's mother. It's the definition of awkward. She had a point. The drive took 20 minutes. Helen spent most of it briefing me on her family like I was preparing for a corporate presentation. Her sister Margaret was the oldest, married to a cardiologist named Richard. 2 kids, both in college. Her brother James was the middle child, divorced, worked in finance. Then Helen, the youngest, the one who'd married for love instead of status and had paid for it with a lifetime of subtle judgment. They're not bad people, Helen said as we pulled into the driveway. They just have very specific ideas about how life should look. And a widowed sister dating someone 8 years younger doesn't fit that picture? 16 years, Helen corrected quietly. I nearly drove into a mailbox. What? I'm 48, Daniel, you're 32, 16 years. I'd known there was an age gap, but hearing the number out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. 16 years. I'd been in high school when Helen was already married with a daughter. Does it bother you? Helen asked, her voice careful. Does it bother you? I asked first. I parked the car and turned to face her. Helen, I'm pretending to be your boyfriend to help you survive a family party. If the age gap bothered me, I wouldn't be here. She smiled, relieved. Good, because we're about to face the firing squad. The party was already in full swing when we walked in. At least 30 people filled the house, conversations and laughter echoing off the high ceilings. A banner reading Happy 55th Margaret hung over the fireplace. Helen's hand found mine as we stepped into the living room, and I realized this was it. Showtime. Helen! A woman who could only be Margaret swept toward us, her eyes immediately zeroing in on our joined hands. You made it! And you brought... She stopped, her smile freezing. Daniel Cooper? Hello, Margaret, I said, extending my free hand. It's good to see you again. She shook my hand mechanically, her gaze darting between Helen and me like she was solving a complicated math problem. I didn't realize you two were in touch. Recent development, Helen said, her voice steady but her hand tightening around mine. We ran into each other a few weeks ago and just started talking. The truth, if you tilted your head and squinted. How nice, Margaret said, her tone suggesting it was anything but nice. Claire didn't mention... Claire doesn't know, Helen interrupted. It's still new. We wanted to be sure before we said anything. I watched the calculation happening behind Margaret's eyes. The impropriety of dating her daughter's ex-fiancé versus the relief of seeing Helen with someone, anyone, after 2 years of worried phone calls and failed setups. Relief won. Well, Margaret said, her smile warming by a degree or two. Welcome, Daniel. Make yourself at home. Helen, can I borrow you for a moment? Helen shot me an apologetic look and let her sister drag her toward the kitchen. I found myself alone in a room full of strangers, holding a beer I didn't remember accepting. You're either very brave or very stupid, a voice said behind me. I turned to find a man about my age, holding a wine glass and wearing an expression of amused curiosity. James's son, he explained. Alex. I'm the black sheep cousin who everyone pretends doesn't exist because I became a teacher instead of a doctor. Daniel, I said, shaking his hand. The guy dating his ex's mother. Oh, I know who you are. Everyone knows who you are. You're the main topic of conversation in the kitchen right now. Great. Relax. Half of them think it's scandalous. The other half is just relieved Aunt Helen is finally moving on. He took a sip of wine. For what it's worth, I think it's kind of great. Helen deserves someone who makes her happy. And you're clearly making her happy, because I haven't seen her smile like that in years. I followed his gaze to the kitchen doorway, where Helen stood with her sister and another woman I didn't recognize. She was laughing at something, her whole face lit up, and something in my chest tightened. We're just friends, I said. Sure you are, Alex said knowingly. And I'm just a teacher who accidentally fell into a job he loves. We're all just something, aren't we? Before I could respond, a small voice interrupted us. Are you Daniel? I looked down to find a little boy staring up at me with serious brown eyes. He couldn't have been more than 6, wearing a button-up shirt that was already half untucked and holding a dinosaur toy. I am, I said, crouching down to his level. Who are you? Tommy. He held up the dinosaur. This is Rex. He's a T-Rex. Do you know about dinosaurs? I know a little bit. Grandma said you draw buildings. Can you draw dinosaurs? Grandma, this was Helen's grandson, Claire's son, the child I'd heard about but never met, because Claire had been so focused on her career that she'd barely mentioned him during our relationship. I can try, I said. Do you have paper? Ooh. Tommy's face lit up. He grabbed my hand with complete trust and dragged me toward a side room, chattering about dinosaurs and buildings and whether it was possible to build a house shaped like a stegosaurus. The room turned out to be a small library. Tommy produced a notebook and crayons from a cabinet, and for the next 20 minutes, I found myself sketching dinosaurs while a 6-year-old provided detailed critiques of their anatomical accuracy. The arms are too long, Tommy said, pointing at my T-Rex. They're supposed to be tiny and useless. Maybe this one has special long arms. That's not scientific. Who taught you about science? Grandma. She's really smart. She knows everything. He paused, his little face growing serious. Are you going to marry Grandma? I nearly dropped the crayon. What? Margaret said Grandma has a boyfriend now. That's you, right? So are you going to marry her? Tommy, your grandmother and I are just friends. That's what Mommy said about her and Derek. And then Derek moved in, and now he's there all the time. And Mommy says I have to stay with Grandma because Derek doesn't like kids. The casual way he said it, like it was just a fact of his life, broke something in me. This kid who should be living with his mother, who should be the center of her world, had been set aside like an inconvenient obligation. "Do you like living with your grandma?" I asked carefully. Tommy nodded enthusiastically. "Grandma makes the best pancakes, and she reads to me every night. And she doesn't get mad when I ask too many questions." He paused. "But sometimes she's sad. She tries to hide it, but I can tell. She cries at night sometimes." "How do you know that?" "I hear her. My room is next to hers." He looked up at me with those two old eyes. "If you marry Grandma, will you make her not sad anymore?" Before I could answer that impossible question, Helen appeared in the doorway. "There you are," she said, relief evident in her voice. "Tommy, you kidnapped my date." "He's teaching me about dinosaurs," Tommy said. "And he's really good at drawing. Look." He held up my sketches proudly. Helen crossed the room and examined them, a smile playing at her lips. "These are wonderful," she said. "Daniel, I didn't know you could draw like this." "Architecture," I said, standing up. "Lots of sketching involved." "Can Daniel come to dinner?" Tommy asked. "Please, Grandma, he said he'd draw me a whole dinosaur city." I said maybe, I corrected. "That's adult for yes," Tommy said confidently. Helen laughed, a real unguarded laugh that made something warm spread through my chest. "We'll see, sweetie. Why don't you go show Uncle James your drawings?" Tommy gathered up the papers and raced out of the room, leaving Helen and me alone for the first time since we'd arrived. "I'm sorry," Helen said. "He can be a bit intense. He's great. Smart kid. He is." She moved to the window, looking out at the garden where some of the party guests had migrated. "Claire left him with me 8 months ago. Said it was temporary, just until she got settled with her new boyfriend. That was supposed to be 2 weeks. Does she visit? Once a month if I'm lucky. She sends money, calls on Sundays. But Tommy needs more than money and phone calls." Helen's voice was tight with controlled anger. "He needs his mother. He has you. It's not the same. Maybe it's better." She turned to look at me, surprised. "What?" "Tommy told me you read to him every night, that you make the best pancakes, that you never get mad when he asks questions." I moved closer. "Helen, you're not a substitute. You're his family, the one who showed up." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm not his mother. No, you're better. You're the one who chose to be here." She looked like she wanted to say something, but footsteps in the hallway interrupted us. We both stepped back instinctively, putting distance between us just as Margaret appeared in the doorway. "There you are," she said. "Dinner's ready. Helen, I need you to help me carry out the—" She stopped, looking between us. "Am I interrupting something?" "No," Helen said quickly. "We were just talking about Tommy." Margaret's expression softened. "He really likes Daniel. I haven't seen him warm up to someone this quickly since—" She stopped herself. "Since his grandfather," Helen finished quietly. An awkward silence fell. Margaret excused herself, and Helen and I followed her out to the dining room where a massive table had been set for everyone. I ended up seated between Helen and Tommy, who immediately resumed his dinosaur lecture. Across the table, James watched us with open curiosity, while his ex-wife made pointed comments about age-appropriate relationships. Margaret's husband asked me about my firm, a question I suspected was designed to assess my financial stability. But through it all, I kept noticing small things. The way Helen's hand would occasionally brush mine under the table. The way Tommy kept checking to make sure I was still there. The way Helen would catch my eye and smile. A private smile that said, "We're surviving this together." After dinner, while the adults retreated to the living room for drinks and the kids scattered to play, I found myself on the back patio with Tommy, who'd insisted I see the garden's koi pond. "They're Grandma's favorite," Tommy said, pointing at the orange fish circling lazily in the water. "She comes out here when she's sad. She says it's peaceful." "Your grandma comes here? To this house?" "No, but at her house she has a little pond in the backyard. She sits there at night." He looked up at me. "Will you take care of it? The pond? If you marry her?" "Tommy, I heard Aunt Margaret say Grandma shouldn't be alone anymore. She said it's not healthy. And Uncle James said maybe you're not what he would have chosen, but beggars can't be choosers." He said it matter-of-factly, repeating words he clearly didn't fully understand. I don't know what that means, but I think it means you're supposed to help Grandma not be alone. My heart cracked for this kid, trying to piece together adult conversations and make sense of a world that had rearranged itself around him without his permission. Tommy, I can't promise I'll marry your grandmother, I said carefully, but I can promise that I care about her, and I care about you, and I'm going to do my best to help both of you be happy. That sounds like what a dad would say, Tommy observed. Is that okay? He thought about it seriously, then nodded. Yeah, it's okay. I never had a dad. Mommy said he left before I was born. So I don't know what it's supposed to be like, but I think maybe it's supposed to be like this. He slipped his small hand into mine, and I felt the weight of that trust like a physical thing. Daniel? Helen's voice came from the doorway. We should probably head out soon. It's getting late. I turned to find her silhouetted against the light from the house, and something shifted in that moment. This wasn't pretend anymore. This wasn't a favor for an acquaintance or a way to prove I'd moved on from Claire. This was real. The drive home was quiet. Tommy had fallen asleep in the back seat, and Helen spent most of the time looking out the window. Your family thinks we're sleeping together, I said finally. I know. Does that bother you? Should it? I don't know what we're doing here, Helen. She turned to look at me, and in the dim light from the dashboard I could see uncertainty in her eyes. Neither do I, but I know I haven't felt this alive in 2 years. I know Tommy asks about you every day, and I know that tonight, for the first time since Robert died, I didn't feel like a widow. I just felt like me. We pulled up to her house, a modest 2-story in a quiet neighborhood. She started to wake Tommy, but I stopped her. Let me, I said. I carried the sleeping boy inside, following Helen up the stairs to a room decorated with dinosaur posters and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Tommy stirred when I laid him on the bed but didn't wake. Helen pulled off his shoes and covered him with a blanket, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "Good night, sweetheart," she whispered. We tiptoed out, leaving the door cracked. In the hallway, under the soft glow of a nightlight, Helen and I stood facing each other. "Thank you," she said, "for tonight, for being so good with Tommy, for not running away screaming when my family interrogated you. They weren't that bad. James asked you about your retirement plan at a birthday party. Fair point." She laughed softly, then sobered. "Daniel, I need to know, are we still pretending?" My heart hammered in my chest. This was it, the moment where I could back out, could laugh it off, could keep this safe and undefined. But when I looked at Helen, standing there in her cream sweater with her hair falling out of its ponytail, with her vulnerable eyes and her brave smile, I found I didn't want safe. "No," I said. "I don't think we are. What are we doing then?" "I think we're figuring it out as we go." She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something light and floral. "That's terrifying." "It is. I haven't done this in 30 years. Dating. I married Robert when I was 18. I don't know how this works anymore. Neither do I. My longest relationship ended in a canceled wedding. We're a mess. We really are." She smiled, and then, before I could second-guess it, I leaned in and kissed her. It was soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. Helen froze for half a second, then her hands came up to my chest, fingers curling into my shirt, and she kissed me back. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "That wasn't pretend," Helen whispered. "No," I agreed. "It wasn't." A door opened down the hall. We jumped apart like guilty teenagers just as Tommy appeared, rubbing his eyes. "I had a bad dream," he said sleepily. "Grandma?" Helen immediately went to him, scooping him up even though he was probably too big to be carried. "It's okay, baby. I've got you." "Is Daniel still here?" "I'm here," I said, moving closer. "Do you want me to stay until you fall back asleep?" Tommy nodded against Helen's shoulder. So the three of us went back to his room, Helen settling in the bed with Tommy while I sat in the chair beside them. Helen read from a dinosaur encyclopedia until Tommy's breathing evened out. When we were sure he was asleep, we crept back out to the hallway. "I should go," I said. "You should," Helen agreed, but neither of us moved. "Helen, I need you to know something. This thing between us, whatever it is, it's not because of Claire. It's not some weird revenge or rebellion or—" "I know," she said, "because if it were, you wouldn't have spent 20 minutes drawing dinosaurs with my grandson. You wouldn't have carried him to bed. You wouldn't look at me the way you do. How do I look at you? Like you see me. Not my age or my past or my complications. Just me. I cupped her face in my hands, thumbs brushing her cheeks. I do see you, all of you, and I like what I see. We kissed again. Longer this time. Deeper. Her hands tangled in my hair and I pulled her closer, and for a moment the rest of the world fell away. When we finally broke apart, Helen was smiling. You should really go now, before I ask you to stay. Would that be so bad? Yes, she said firmly. Because Tommy will have questions and I'm not ready to answer them. And because I need to think. We both do. This is happening fast, Daniel. She was right. A week ago, we'd been strangers. Now I was standing in her hallway, kissing her like my life depended on it, and I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. Think about it, I said. I'll call you tomorrow. You better. I left, but not before stealing one more kiss at the door. I drove home with my mind racing, trying to understand what had just happened, what I was feeling, what it meant. By the time I got to my apartment, I'd made a decision. This wasn't pretend anymore. This wasn't a favor or a game, or a way to help Helen save face with her family. This was me, falling for a woman who made me laugh, who challenged me, who came with complications I'd never imagined. This was me, falling for Helen Martinez, and I was done pretending otherwise. The next 3 weeks felt like living in a dream I was afraid to wake up from. Helen and I fell into a rhythm. Dinners at her place where Tommy would monopolize the conversation with facts about prehistoric creatures. Saturday mornings at the park where I taught Tommy to throw a football while Helen read on a bench, looking up occasionally to smile at us. Sunday afternoons when Tommy was with Claire, and Helen and I could just be together, talking for hours about everything and nothing. I met her for lunch between meetings. She'd come to my apartment after Tommy went to bed, and we'd stay up late watching old movies, kissing on my couch like teenagers. It was new and exciting and terrifying in the best way. But there was an elephant in the room we both kept dancing around. Claire. Helen hadn't told her daughter yet. Every Sunday when Claire came to pick up Tommy, Helen would make excuses for why she couldn't stay for coffee, why she seemed distracted, and I stayed away those days, giving them space, pretending I didn't exist. I'll tell her soon, Helen promised one night as we sat in her backyard by the small koi pond Tommy had mentioned. I just need to find the right time. There's never going to be a right time, I said. I know, but I keep thinking if I wait a little longer, if we're more established, it'll be easier to explain, or harder. She didn't argue because we both knew I was right. The reckoning came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at Helen's house helping Tommy build a model of the solar system for his school project. Helen was in the kitchen making dinner, humming along to some song on the radio. It was domestic and perfect, and I remember thinking that this was what happiness felt like. Then the front door opened. Mom? I'm early, Tommy, baby, where are you? Claire. I felt Tommy stiffen beside me. Helen appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face going pale. Claire, she said, you weren't supposed to be here until 6. Derek had to cancel our plans, so I figured I'd spend the afternoon with my son. Claire walked into the living room, then stopped dead when she saw me sitting on the floor surrounded by styrofoam planets. Daniel? I stood up, my heart hammering. Claire. She looked exactly the same. Same perfectly styled blonde hair, same designer clothes, same sharp eyes that could cut through pretense in seconds. But there was something harder about her now, something brittle. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. I invited him, Helen said quickly, moving to stand between us. Daniel's been helping Tommy with his science project. Claire's eyes narrowed. Since when? Since a few weeks ago. We ran into each other and... You ran into each other, Claire repeated slowly. Her gaze moved from Helen to me, then down to Tommy, who was watching the adults with worried eyes. Tommy, go to your room. But Mom, now. Tommy gathered up his planets and fled. The moment his door closed upstairs, Claire turned on her mother. How long has this been going on? Nothing's going on, Helen said, but her voice wavered. Don't lie to me, I'm not stupid. Claire looked at me with something like disgust. You're sleeping with my mother? Claire, I started. Don't, she snapped. Don't you dare try to explain this. What is this, Daniel? Some kind of sick revenge because I wouldn't marry you? This has nothing to do with you. She laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. Nothing to do with me? You're dating my mother. We're not, Helen tried to interject. Please, Claire said. I saw the way you looked at him when I walked in. I saw the way he stood up like he got caught doing something wrong. You think I don't know what this is? Then tell me, I said, my anger rising. Tell me what you think this is. It's pathetic, Claire said coldly. You couldn't have me, so you settled for the older model. Does it make you feel powerful, Daniel? Dating a lonely widow who's so desperate for attention she'll take her daughter's leftovers? That's enough, Helen said, her voice shaking. But Claire wasn't done. How could you do this to me, Mom? After everything I did for you, setting you up with David, trying to get you back out there, and this is how you thank me? By sneaking around with my ex? Everything you did for me? Helen's voice rose. You set me up on one blind date that ended with me being humiliated. You leave your son with me for months at a time. You call once a week if I'm lucky. But sure, Claire, tell me again about everything you've done for me. The room went silent. I'd never heard Helen raise her voice before, and from the shocked look on Claire's face, neither had she. I'm building a life, Claire said defensively. Derek and I are serious. We're talking about getting engaged. But he's not ready for kids yet, so I'm giving him time. Tommy is 6 years old, Helen said. He doesn't have time to wait for Derek to be ready. He needs his mother now. And he has you, Claire shot back. You love playing martyr, don't you, Mom? Poor Helen raising her grandson because her selfish daughter abandoned him. Except you're not actually sacrificing anything. You're using Tommy as an excuse to avoid getting your own life. That's not fair, I said. Stay out of this, Claire snapped at me. This is between me and my mother. No, I said, it's not. Because I care about Helen, and I care about Tommy. And watching you treat them both like inconveniences to your perfect life makes me sick. You have no right. I have every right. I was there when Tommy asked me if I was going to marry his grandmother, because he's smart enough to see that she's lonely. I was there when he told me he hears her crying at night. I was there when he admitted his own mother's boyfriend doesn't like kids, and he said it like it was normal, like that's just how life is. I stepped closer to Claire. You want to know what's pathetic? It's not your mother finding happiness with someone you used to date. It's you pretending to care about her when all you really care about is how this looks to you. Claire's face flushed red. You don't understand anything. Then explain it to me. I don't owe you an explanation. You're nothing to me, Daniel. Nothing. She turned to Helen. And if you continue this sick relationship, you're nothing to me either. Claire, Helen breathed, devastated. Choose, Claire said. Him or me. The silence that followed felt like a physical weight. I could see Helen struggling, torn between her daughter and whatever this thing between us was. And I realized in that moment what I had to do. Helen, I said quietly, can I talk to you? Alone? No, Claire said. Whatever you have to say it in front of me. I ignored her, focusing on Helen. Please. We moved to the kitchen, leaving Claire fuming in the living room. Helen's hands were shaking as she gripped the counter. I can't lose her, she whispered. She's my daughter, Daniel. She's all I have left of Robert. I know, but I don't want to lose you either. These past few weeks have been the happiest I've been in years. You and Tommy, this little family we've been building, it feels right. It feels real. It is real, I said, taking her hands, which is why I can't let you choose. What? Claire's right about one thing. This is complicated, messier than either of us anticipated, and I won't be the reason you lose your relationship with your daughter. Daniel, no. Helen, listen to me. I cupped her face, memorizing every detail. Tommy needs his mother in his life. Even if Claire's not great at it right now, even if she's selfish and short-sighted, she's still his mother. And you need her too, whether you want to admit it or not. But what about us? Maybe there is no us, I said, even as it killed me to say it. Maybe we were just two lonely people who found comfort in each other for a little while. You don't believe that. It doesn't matter what I believe. What matters is that you need to fix things with Claire, and you can't do that with me in the picture. Tears streamed down Helen's face. So that's it? You're just giving up? I'm not giving up. I'm letting go. There's a difference. It doesn't feel different. I kissed her forehead, her cheeks, tasting the salt of her tears. Tell Tommy I'm sorry I didn't finish the solar system with him. Tell him. My voice broke. Tell him I'll miss him. Daniel, I should go. I walked back into the living room where Claire stood with her arms crossed, victorious. I didn't look at her as I grabbed my jacket. You made the right choice, Claire said. I stopped at the door and turned to look at her. No, Claire. I made the easy choice. There's a difference. And someday, when Tommy's older and asks why his grandmother is alone, when he asks where I went, you're going to have to explain to him how you made sure the one person who made his grandmother smile didn't stick around. You're going to have to tell him you chose your own comfort over her happiness. Get out, Claire said, her voice shaking. I left. I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When I got to my apartment, I sat in my car for an hour staring at nothing, trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed. A text from Helen. Please don't do this. We can figure it out. I didn't respond. Another text. Tommy's asking for you. He doesn't understand why you left. I turned off my phone. The next few days passed in a blur. I threw myself into work, taking every project, every meeting, staying at the office until midnight, because going home meant being alone with my thoughts. My partner asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was fine. I wasn't fine. I'd walked away from the first real thing I'd felt in years because I was scared. Scared of the complications, scared of Claire's judgment, scared of admitting that I'd fallen in love with a woman who came with baggage and responsibilities, and a grandson who called me Daniel, like it was the most natural thing in the world. A week after the confrontation, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Daniel? A small voice, Tommy. Hey, buddy, I said, my heart breaking. How'd you get this number? Grandma's phone. She's sleeping. She's been sleeping a lot. He paused. Did I do something wrong? Is that why you left? No, I said firmly. You didn't do anything wrong, Tommy. You're perfect. Then why did you go away? It's complicated, buddy. That's what Grandma said. But I don't understand. I thought you liked us. I do like you. So much. Then come back. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that sometimes loving someone means walking away? That sometimes the right thing feels like the wrong thing, and you do it anyway because you're too much of a coward to fight for what you want? Tommy, I can't. Grandma's been crying again, he said. Every night I hear her. And she doesn't make pancakes anymore. She just sits by the pond and stares at the fish. You said you'd take care of her. You promised. I never promised. You did. At Aunt Margaret's party, you said you'd help us be happy, but we're not happy. Grandma's sad and Mommy's mad and I miss you and nobody will tell me why you left. I heard movement on the other end. Then Helen's sleepy voice. Tommy? Who are you talking to? Daniel. A pause. Then Helen's voice again, clearer now. Give me the phone, sweetie. Rustling sounds, then Helen's. Then, I'm sorry, he shouldn't have called you. It's okay. No, it's not. You were right to walk away. This was too complicated, too messy. I shouldn't have dragged you into my life. Helen, Claire and I are talking again. She apologized. Sort of. She's still angry, but she's trying. And Tommy's been spending more time with her. She and Derek broke up, so she's been around more. It's good. It's what he needs. And what about what you need? Silence. I need my daughter in my life, she said finally. I need Tommy to have his mother. That's more important than being happy. I was happy before I met you. I'll be happy again. But she didn't sound happy. She sounded hollow, defeated. Helen, I have to go, she said. Tommy has school. Take care of yourself, Daniel. She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, staring at the blank screen, and realized I'd made a terrible mistake. I'd thought walking away was noble, selfless, the right thing to do, but all I'd done was hurt the people I cared about most. Helen was still crying herself to sleep. Tommy still didn't understand, and I was miserable, pretending to be fine while everything inside me screamed that I'd given up too easily. Claire had made me choose, and I'd chosen her comfort over Helen's happiness, over my own happiness. And for what? So Claire could feel like she'd won? So she could maintain control over her mother's life while barely participating in her son's? I'd spent 3 years getting over Claire, learning to live without her, convincing myself I was better off alone. And then Helen had walked into my life, or I'd walked into hers, and for the first time since the engagement ended, I'd felt alive. I'd felt like myself. I'd felt like I had a purpose beyond work and empty apartments and pretending to be okay. Helen made me want to fight. Tommy made me want to be better, and I'd walked away from both of them because it was easier than standing up to Claire. I looked at my phone again, at the blank screen, at my own reflection in the black glass. "You're a coward," I said to myself. And I decided right then that I was done being a coward. I called Tommy back the next morning. Helen answered. "Daniel, I told you. I need to talk to Tommy," I said. "Please." A pause. Then, "Hold on." Shuffling sounds. Then Tommy's voice, cautious and hopeful. "Daniel? Hey, buddy. Remember how I promised to teach you to ride a bike? Yeah, I'm going to keep that promise. Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. Tell your grandma to bring you to Riverside Park. Really, really. And Tommy, I'm sorry I left. I'm going to fix it. How? I don't know yet. But I'm going to try." I hung up before Helen could get back on the line and argue with me. The next call was harder. I found Claire's number in my old contacts, the one I'd never deleted even after 3 years. It rang 4 times before she answered. "What do you want?" No greeting, just hostility. "To talk face to face. We have nothing to talk about. We have everything to talk about. Your mother, your son. The fact that you're so wrapped up in your own life that you can't see you're hurting everyone around you. How dare you? Meet me for coffee, 1 hour. That's all I'm asking. If you still hate me after that, I'll walk away for good." Silence, then reluctantly. "Fine. Starbucks on 5th. Noon." She hung up. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered 2 coffees, and sat at a corner table rehearsing what I was going to say. When Claire walked in, she looked tired. No perfect makeup today, no designer outfit. Just jeans and a sweater, her hair in a messy ponytail. She sat down across from me without a word. "Thank you for coming," I said. "I'm not here for you. I'm here because you mentioned Tommy, and I need to know if there's actually something wrong or if you're just being dramatic." "There's something wrong," I said, "but it's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I took a breath. "Claire, when we were together, I thought I knew you. I thought I understood what you wanted, but looking back, I don't think I ever really saw you. I saw the version of you that you wanted me to see, the successful, ambitious woman who had her life together. Where is this going? I'm trying to say that I didn't fight for us. When things got hard, when you started pulling away, I just accepted it. I told myself you were too busy, too focused on your career, that I was asking for too much by wanting more of your time. And when you kept pushing back our wedding date, I called it off instead of asking what was really going on." Claire's jaw tightened. "You're trying to blame me for our breakup?" "No, I'm taking responsibility for mine. I gave up on us without fighting, just like I gave up on your mother without fighting." I leaned forward. "Claire, I'm in love with Helen. Don't let me finish. I'm in love with your mother, and I know that makes you uncomfortable. I know it feels wrong or weird or like some kind of betrayal, but it's real. And more importantly, she makes me happy, and I make her happy, and Tommy—" My voice caught. "Tommy deserves to see his grandmother smile again." "Tommy has me," Claire said defensively. "Does he?" I asked gently. "Because from what I've seen, he has a mother who visits once a month and sends money to ease her guilt. He has a mother who chose her boyfriend over him, who leaves him with his grandmother for months at a time because it's more convenient. Derek and I broke up," Claire said quietly. "I heard. And now you're around more, which is great. But Tommy needs consistency, Claire. He needs to know that the people in his life aren't going to disappear just because it gets inconvenient." "Like you did?" The accusation hit its mark. "Yeah, like I did. I walked away because you asked me to, because I thought that's what Helen needed. But I was wrong. I should have stayed. I should have fought for her, for Tommy, for us." Claire looked down at her coffee, her fingers tracing the rim of the cup. "My whole life, my mother has been there. Steady. Reliable. She married my father when she was 18, and she spent 30 years taking care of him, taking care of me, putting everyone else first. And when he died, I watched her break apart. For months, she could barely function. I had to handle the funeral, the estate, everything, because she was just gone." "I didn't know," I said softly. "Of course you didn't. We'd already broken up by then. But that's why I've been so controlling, why I've been pushing her to date, to move on. Because I can't watch her waste away like that again. I can't lose my mother, too." "You're not losing her. She's just trying to live again. With you," Claire said, and there was pain in her voice now. "With my ex-fiancé. Do you have any idea how that feels? To know that my own mother is dating the man I was supposed to marry. Every time I think about it, I feel like I'm in some twisted nightmare. I know it's hard. No, you don't. You don't know what it's like to have your past and your present collide like this. You don't know what it's like to worry that she's only with you because you remind her of what she lost. That maybe she sees my father in you, or sees some fantasy of the life she could have had if things were different. I sat back, stunned. I hadn't considered that perspective. That maybe Claire's anger wasn't just about jealousy or control, but about fear. Fear that Helen was chasing a ghost. Fear that I was taking advantage of her grief. Is that what you really think? I asked. That Helen doesn't actually care about me? I don't know what I think anymore, Claire admitted. All I know is that my life is a mess. Derek left because I couldn't commit to him the way he wanted. My career is stalling because I've been too distracted. My son asks about you more than he asks about me, and my mother looks at you the way she used to look at my father, and I don't know if that's beautiful or tragic. What if it's both? Claire met my eyes. What? What if it's both beautiful and tragic? What if life is just messy and complicated and there's no perfect answer? What if your mother deserves to be happy, even if it makes you uncomfortable? What if Tommy deserves to have people in his life who show up, even if one of them used to date his mother? You're asking me to be okay with this. I'm asking you to consider that your mother's happiness doesn't take anything away from you, that her moving forward doesn't mean she's forgetting your father, and that Tommy having more people who love him is a good thing, not a threat. Claire was quiet for a long moment. You really love her? I really do. And you're not with her because of me. This isn't some weird psychological thing where you're trying to get back at me or replace what we had. Claire, what we had ended 3 years ago. I've spent that time moving on, building a life without you. And when I met Helen again, it wasn't about you. It was about her. About the way she laughs at my terrible jokes. About the way she sees the best in people even when they don't deserve it. About the way she loves Tommy with her whole heart, even though he's not technically her responsibility. She's 16 years older than you. I know. People will talk. Let them. This is going to be weird. Forever. Family dinners, holidays, Tommy calling you. She stopped. What would Tommy even call you? I don't know. Whatever he's comfortable with. Claire rubbed her face with both hands. This is insane. I know. My mother is dating my ex-fiancé. My son likes him better than he likes me, and I'm sitting here in a Starbucks actually considering being okay with it. Are you? I asked carefully. Considering it? She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something shift in her expression. Resignation, maybe, or acceptance, or just exhaustion from fighting a battle she was never going to win. If you hurt her, Claire said slowly, if you break her heart or treat her like an experiment or get bored and leave, I will destroy you. I will make your life a living hell. I will use every contact I have, every connection, every resource at my disposal to ruin you. Do you understand? I understand. And Tommy, if you're going to be in his life, you're in it for good. No disappearing when things get hard. No half measures. You're all in or you're out. I'm all in. Claire nodded slowly. Okay. Okay, I won't stand in your way. But Daniel, she leaned forward. Don't make me regret this. My mother has been through enough. She deserves someone who's going to stay. I'm going to stay, I promised. Claire stood up, grabbing her coffee. I need to go. I have a meeting. But Daniel, thank you for fighting for her. I know I made it hard, but she needs someone who won't give up when things get complicated. She left, and I sat there processing what had just happened. Claire had given her blessing, sort of, in the most Claire way possible, full of threats and conditions, but still. Now I just had to convince Helen to give me another chance. Saturday morning came. I arrived at Riverside Park at 9:45, carrying a brand new bike with training wheels and a helmet covered in dinosaur stickers. I'd spent 2 hours at the store the night before making sure everything was perfect. Helen and Tommy arrived at exactly 10 o'clock. Tommy saw the bike and screamed, running toward me with his arms out. I caught him in a hug, lifting him off the ground. You came back, he shouted. You really came back? I told you I would, I said, setting him down, and I brought you something. I showed him the bike. His eyes went wide with wonder. For me? For you. But you have to promise me something. Anything. You have to promise that even when you learn to ride without training wheels, you'll still let me take you to the park sometimes. Deal? Deal. He ran to examine the bike. and I finally looked at Helen. She stood a few feet away, arms crossed, guarded. She'd lost weight, I noticed. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. "Helen," I said. "You shouldn't have done this," she said quietly. "You're just going to confuse him. Confuse both of us." "I'm not trying to confuse anyone. I'm trying to fix my mistake." "Your mistake was getting involved with me in the first place." "No, my mistake was walking away when things got hard." Tommy called out from where he was trying to climb onto the bike. "Daniel, help me." "In a minute, buddy," I called back. Then to Helen, "I talked to Claire." Her eyes widened. "What?" "Wednesday, we met for coffee. I told her I was in love with you." "Daniel." "I told her I wasn't going to give up on you just because it made her uncomfortable. I told her that you deserve to be happy, and that Tommy deserves to have people in his life who show up." And she listened. What did she say? "She threatened to destroy me if I hurt you. Then she gave us her blessing." "Sort of." Helen's eyes filled with tears. "She did?" "She did. Helen, I know I messed up. I know I walked away when I should have stayed. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you tell me to leave." "I can't." Her voice broke. "I can't do this again, Daniel. I can't let myself hope only to have you change your mind when things get too complicated." "Then let me prove it to you." I stepped closer, taking her hands. "Let me prove that I'm not going anywhere, that I'm not afraid of complicated, that I want this, all of it. You, Tommy, the messy family dinners with Claire where everyone's uncomfortable, the late nights when Tommy has nightmares, the gossip from your sister, all of it." "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you want all of that?" "Because I love you," I said simply. "I love your strength and your kindness, and the way you never give up on people, even when they give up on themselves. I love the way you read to Tommy every night. I love the way you sit by your pond when you're sad. I love that you made me feel alive again when I'd convinced myself I was fine being numb." Tears streamed down her face. "I love you too, so much. But I'm scared. So am I. But let's be scared together." She laughed through her tears, and then she was kissing me, her arms around my neck, and I was kissing her back, holding her like I was never letting go. "Gross!" Tommy shouted. "Are you done being mushy? I want to learn to ride my bike." We broke apart, laughing. Helen wiped her tears, and I took her hand. "Come on," I said. "Let's teach our kid to ride a bike." Our kid. The words felt right. The next hour was pure chaos. Tommy fell 17 times, scraped both knees, crashed into a tree, and declared bikes were stupid at least 8 times. But he kept getting back on, and by the end he was pedaling on his own, wobbling but moving, screaming with joy while Helen and I ran behind him cheering. When he finally stopped, exhausted and triumphant, he turned to us with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. "Did you see me? Did you see me ride?" "Then we saw you," Helen said, hugging him tight. "We're so proud of you." "Can we get ice cream now?" Tommy asked. "To celebrate?" "Ice cream sounds perfect," I said. We went to the little shop near the park, the 3 of us squeezing into a booth meant for 2. Tommy got chocolate with rainbow sprinkles and talked non-stop about how he was going to ride his bike to school and be the fastest kid in his class. Helen got vanilla and kept smiling at me like she couldn't quite believe this was real. I got strawberry and felt more content than I had in years. "Daniel," Tommy said, his face suddenly serious, "are you my grandma's boyfriend now?" Helen and I exchanged a look. "Yes," I said. "Is that okay with you?" He thought about it, then nodded. "Yeah, it's okay. Does that mean you'll be at our house more?" "If your grandma wants me there." "I want you there," Helen said softly. "Then yes," I told Tommy, "I'll be there more." "Good," he said, returning to his ice cream, "because you still have to help me finish the solar system, and I need help building a tree house. And Grandma gets scared during scary movies, so you have to hold her hand." "I can do all of that," I said, "and you have to come to my school play. I'm a dinosaur." "Of course you are," Helen laughed, the sound bright and happy and free. I reached across the table and took her hand, lacing our fingers together. "I love you," I mouthed. "I love you too," she mouthed back. 3 months later, we were at Margaret's house again, another family party, this time for Thanksgiving. The whole clan was there, including Claire, who'd been making an effort to spend more time with Tommy. She and Derek had gotten back together, and he was actually here, awkwardly making conversation with James about stocks. But the biggest shock was when Derek knelt down to talk to Tommy about dinosaurs, actually listening and engaging, and Tommy lit up in a way I hadn't seen before. "He's trying," Claire said, appearing beside me. "For me, for Tommy." "That's good," I said. "It is." She paused. "Mom looks happy." I followed her gaze to where Helen sat with Margaret, the two of them laughing about something. Helen caught my eye and smiled, that special smile that was just for me. "She is happy," I said. "Thank you," Claire said quietly, "for not giving up on her, on any of us. Thank you for letting me try." She nodded and walked away to join Derek and Tommy. I made my way over to Helen, sliding into the seat beside her. "Having fun?" she asked. "Always, when I'm with you." Margaret excused herself to check on dinner, leaving us alone for a moment. "Tommy asked me something this morning," Helen said. "What?" "He asked when you're going to ask me to marry you." My heart stopped. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that grown-ups do things in their own time, and that he shouldn't rush these things." She looked at me, her eyes sparkling. "But between you and me, I'm getting a little impatient." I laughed and pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Well, we wouldn't want to disappoint Tommy." "No, we wouldn't." 6 months later, I proposed. Not at a fancy restaurant or with a grand gesture, but in Helen's backyard by the koi pond, with Tommy hiding in the bushes trying not to giggle. She said yes before I even finished asking. We got married in a small ceremony in that same backyard. Tommy was the ring bearer, wearing a suit with dinosaur cufflinks. Claire was there, standing beside her mother, crying happy tears. My business partner officiated. Margaret brought too much food. Alex made a speech about unlikely love stories. And as I watched Helen walk toward me, beautiful in a simple white dress, I thought about that night at Romano's, about how a single moment of kindness had changed everything, about how I'd found love in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected person. "You shouldn't be sitting here alone," I'd said that night, and now she'd never have to sit alone again. We danced under string lights while Tommy ran around with the other kids, showing off his dinosaur cufflinks to anyone who would look. We cut a cake that Margaret had made. We laughed and celebrated and held each other close. And later, when the guests had left and Tommy was asleep upstairs, Helen and I sat by the pond, her head on my shoulder, my arm around her waist. "Are you happy?" I asked. "Happier than I ever thought I'd be again," she said. "You?" "The happiest." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the koi swim lazy circles, and I thought about second chances, about how love doesn't always come in the package you expect, about how sometimes the best things in life happen when you're brave enough to sit down with someone who's sitting alone. Helen had been sitting alone that night, waiting for someone who never showed up, but I showed up, and in the end, that made all the difference.